Senator Washington.
Mr. President, I come to speak about the opposition to the nominee before us that we're going to vote on soon, Mr. John DeLue. It's not necessarily about Mr. DeLue's qualifications. It's about the dangerous precedent we are making as we confirm someone to replace an independent NTSB board member who was removed by the president without cause while they are actively challenging this removal in court. And it's about a needless jeopardizing of public confidence in NTSB critical work, which I'll speak about in a minute, particularly as it relates to the House not taking up the ROTOR Act on suspension yesterday, a bill that we passed by 100 votes here in the United States Senate. But it has been less than 2 years since this body unanimously confirmed Alvin Brown to be on the NTSB. The Senate's overwhelming support for Mr. Brown should not be surprising, as a former mayor of Jacksonville, Florida, and a former senior advisor to the Department of Transportation. Mr. Brown's background and experience qualified him to be on the NTSB. My colleague, Senator Scott of Florida, introduced Mr. Brown at his nomination hearing before the Commerce Committee, praising his, quote, excellent record of service, end quote, and noting that he would, quote, do excellent work on behalf of the American people in this role, end quote. Senator Scott's prediction that Mr. Brown would focus on the NTSB and safety shortly after he was sworn in, he began conducting critical work on the NTSB's investigation into the collapse of the Francis Scott Key Bridge, which killed 6 people and caused billions of dollars in damage. He was also leading the NTSB's response to the March 13, 2025 highway accident on Interstate 35 in Austin, Texas, that killed 5 people and injured 11 more. But seeking to unravel Congress's will and insert its own will, even though we voted on this gentleman and he's serving the NTSB, focusing on safety, the White House basically is trying to remove Mr. Brown and replace him with Mr. DeLue. As I stated earlier, Mr. Brown has filed a lawsuit challenging his removal. This remains in the courts and pending. The Supreme Court is prepared to rule this year on this decision to bring legal clarity to Mr. Brown's case. So I asked my colleagues, why are we rushing to confirm Mr. DeLue to a seat that isn't even really vacant under current law? Why would we needlessly create confusion, especially when the Supreme Court is expected to rule on this issue very soon? And why would the Senate allow the executive branch to undermine the confidence in the independence of the National Transportation Safety Board? As we pointed out, moving ahead with this nomination before us, Mr. DeLue's, is especially problematic when the White House is still not nominated a single member of the opposing party to any independent board or commission, including the NTSB. I guarantee you that is not the way the FTC, the FCC, the NTSB, you are undermining the confidence in these agencies and the fact that we have both Democrats and Republicans who are supposed to serve on them. So this is not about might makes right. This is about policy and expertise and having both Democrats and Republicans on commissions so that you can continue the focus of bipartisan adherence to these principles that each agency is supposed to profess confidence in and move forward on. So do we want an FTC that's driven just purely by politics, an FCC that's purely driven by the president's will or desire? Do we want an NTSB decided by the President of the United States? I guarantee you we don't, because yesterday he couldn't deliver a vote on the House floor that would have gotten us the ROTOR Act, 100 votes in the United States Senate, and he couldn't do that, but he's going to tell us over our processes and over historical history about how Democrat and Republican nominees should be appointed. He's throwing the Democrats off, appointing his own person, and then basically leaving into question how strong is the NTSB really going to be on safety. Congress established the NTSB in law as an independent agency. It reauthorized the agency as recently as 2024. So if all of a sudden everybody here didn't want to have appointments to the NTSB by the normal process, well, you could have had a big chance to say you didn't like that. But nobody did. In fact, we renewed it. So we should now not be rewarding the president's unlawful removal of Vice Chair Brown by rushing to confirm a nominee in a position that is not really vacant. I call on my Republican colleagues not to go down this path. Instead, uphold the constitutional duty to provide checks and balances and protect the American people. Now, Mr. President, as I was mentioning yesterday, unbelievable failure of the House of Representatives to pass what this body did as one of the elements in response to the horrific crash on the Potomac when an Army helicopter collided with a commercial jet carrying 67 individuals that were involved in this accident. No one survived. So the Senate, starting this work, has really pushed the ROTOR Act out with 100 votes. It literally said the military has to, in this instance, provide the same kind of signaling and information that would allow this airspace to work. 100 votes out of the United States Senate. And as my colleague, Senator Cruz from Texas, tried to get this legislation passed as part of the NDAA, everybody said, okay, you know what, we'll do this, but we just don't want to do it on this NDAA bill. Okay, that should have raised suspicion right then and there, because if this is one of the recommendations by the NTSB, oh, actually, it's not one of the recent recommendations of the NTSB. This recommendation has been out of the NTSB for 20 years. 20 years the NTSB has been saying that they believe that this kind of important awareness in space of air around airports needs to be better coordinated. And so for 20 plus years now, the NTSB has been making this recommendation. And smartly, after the tragic accident that took 67 lives, we passed legislation out of here, 100 votes, and my colleague, Senator Cruz, was promised by the Speaker that he would get this on the consent calendar. Oh, so yesterday that's what happened. A vote in the House of Representatives, the consent calendar. That means there's not really opposition, and you can just get 2/3 of the body and get the bill expedited, and it would have gone to the president's desk. But no, that's not what happened yesterday. At the 11th hour, people tried to subvert the will of the families that were there to talk about safety, subvert the NTSB from doing its job and advocating on behalf of the ROTOR Act, and all of a sudden, after a vote was closed quickly, one vote short, this bill did not make it to the president's desk. So I'm calling on Speaker Johnson to get the 26 members who were unable to participate in this vote because of weather in the Northeast, to allow them to come back, schedule another vote, and allow the United States House of Representatives to do its job. Get the ROTOR Act onto the president's desk so he can sign it and we can get safety, and let's move about the other reforms that have to happen to the FAA so that we can assure that our airspace is safe. I thank the president, and I yield the floor.